Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second in our series reflecting on our journey with A Methodist Way of Life. My name is David Goodall, and I'm the District Mission Enabler in the Yorkshire West Methodist District. It's a joy to be joined by David and by Mark for this conversation today. I want to say that we had hoped to have a fourth guest with us. That person's not been able to come along, and that means we're a very male gathering today. That wasn't our intention, but it's the way it's worked out, and we hope that you'll give us a little bit of grace around that. This is the second in our series of recordings, thinking around the Methodist Way of Life stations and reflecting on how we live those out in our life as disciples of Jesus. In each video, Mark and I are welcoming guests to reflect on two of the stations. We said a little bit more about A Methodist Way of Life in our first video, and do have a look at that if you want to find out more, or visit the Methodist Church website where there's lots of different Methodist Way of Life resources. You can watch this little conversation as a video. You can listen to it as a podcast. You can also come along on a Thursday evening at the end of the month and watch it with others and talk about the different stations that we have been reflecting on in that space. All the information is in the notes for this video or on the Yorkshire West District website. Mark, help us with where we're going next.
So as we wait in the waiting room, as we wait for the train to come, I invite us to introduce a bit about ourselves. We've heard a brief bit about David G. I'm going to get really confused today with two Davids, and this is the second of my meetings today with four Davids in total, all different Davids. Other names are available. So please share a little bit about yourself, obviously your name, and as Pancake Day is on the horizon, let's talk about our favourite pancake topping, whether that's traditional or a bit more radical. It's entirely up to you. So let's go to David C to begin with.
So I'm David C, or David Craig. I'm the District Missional Property Enabler. That's what I do with my work time. In my lifetime, I enjoy football. So I play football. I have a family, so a lot of my time is spent parenting, which I really enjoy. And we are all looking forward to Pancake Day. And we all usually get our spoons and knives in the Biscoff spread jar. That is our favorite. Nice. So it's one for the family that we all like.
Very good. Sorry, I should have introduced myself. My name is Mark, and I am a digital church enabler for the Yorkshire West District. And I'm currently in sunny Garforth near Leeds. And regarding pancake topping, there's a bit of a division in our household. We're already talking about households, aren't we? Some of us like waffles rather than pancakes. And so usually we have to do both at some point on Shrove Tuesday. But for me, I'm quite a purist with maple syrup. Or if I'm just feeling more essentials, it's just sugar and lemon juice. What about you, David G?
Thank you. Well, as I said, I am the District Mission Enabler in the Yorkshire West District, so we're a bit of a staff team gathering today. But I help the district and the circuits in the district to think about mission planning and discipleship with the Methodist Way of Life, and I support our new places for new people. So they're the three main things that I do on a regular basis. In terms of pancakes, I like strawberry jam. I'm a strawberry jam man when it comes to pancakes, which is not traditional, but not very. My family are Nutella fans, but I don't like nuts, so they have Nutella and I have strawberry jam along the way.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing, gentlemen, about our favourite toppings. I don't really have a snazzy link to then move on to our first station, but I guess we have been talking about families and hopefully we care for those. And so our first station is going to be about care. And so that is a good point to reflect and to ponder on, where we think about our commitment as well as how we experience this. And so the first question is about how we care for others. Or rather, should we start off with who is someone who has cared for us in our lives? David C?
So for me, I feel like I've got three particular friends who have cared for me all in the same way. They they're close friends. All three of them are older than me. One is 10 years older, one is 20, and one is 30 years older than me. And in a really special way, they've kind of been more friends than mentors, but they've taken time and noticed things when we've chatted and shared. And they followed up with particular gestures of kindness or questions about how I'm doing or how that particular thing in my life's going. And it's the remembering from time to time that feels like a caring act for me. And those friends have been particularly special in that way to me for caring for me.
Thank you. Have these kind of friends just turned up at certain times in your life, or was there an application process that one had to be 10 years, one had to be 20, one had to be 30, or just...
It feels like an odd coincidence that there happens to be this decade gap between them all. And I feel like I'm seeing the future of my life 10 years, 20, 30 years ahead of these great people that have fit into my life. It's just happened that way. God brought them into my life, and they've been fantastic, lifelong friends.
Yeah. Bless you. Thank you. David G.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, David. I at the time we're recording this, which is a couple of weeks before it'll go out, but I've just been away on retreat with 4 of the Methodist ministers who we were all ordained together in 2011, and we've managed every year to spend time together. And those 4 of us, the 5 of us together, I think they're people we care for each other, but they care for me as well. And what's lovely is because we've gathered each year, we've been on that journey for a long time together. So yeah, we have lots of fun when we gather. We do lots of God things when we gather, like worship and pray. But actually, there's a deep level of care. So I'm really thankful to God for that group of people, and I'm thankful for the 4 days we had together last week to care for one another and be away together. And we were in the Lake District, and we got out walking a lot because it was beautiful, and that was a really good way to care for one another as well. How about you, Mark?
I was just thinking about this. I've got 2 actually. First of all, it's and it echoes some of you both about friends who remember, friends who are there. So just been to visit a friend over the weekend or just before the weekend, and they were sort of like, just pile in, just come as you are, and I love that kind of just meet us where we're at. And they opened their house to us and provided lovely food. Food helps, and again, the other person is related to food as well. You can tell it's just before lunchtime, but basically, my mum is somebody that we can have always kind of come back to and visit. But my mum has always had a good memory of remembering what food we like, and I will be honest, there have been times when I've kind of come over and visited my mum like an hour and a half away to kind of go and visit her, and she'll go, I've made something for tea, and I'm like, all right, what is it? And she'll go, your favourite. And I'm thinking, oh, okay, what's that? And what I get is this kind of, I was about to say montage, this whole kind of plethora of nice foods that I like all in one course. And so her heart's really there, and we take it on that kind of value. But I'm there going, oh, I would have never have had gravy leeks with vegetable spring rolls with something else altogether different. And I was just like, but I can see that she's caring for me, and she remembers, and so it was kind of a nice way of which to be remembered and to be loved in that way. So that's my kind of take on that, and for reflecting on that. The next kind of question kind of comes to our thoughts about how are we caring for ourselves. Is either of you like to dive in with that?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I feel like this is something God's been pressing on me recently, particularly because life can feel really stretched, and it's quite easy to pick up bad habits or coping mechanisms because they're usually the easiest ones to choose. And so caring for myself at the moment has really been about making sure I'm getting enough sleep and just doing really basic things, drinking water, eating well, because it affects so much. And I want to do well in my work. I want to do well for my family, the way I parent and husband. And so for all those reasons, caring for myself just means getting the basics right, getting some sleep, drinking some water, and doing the basic parts of life as best as I can.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's interesting, isn't it? There's only so many hours in a day, and I think I've been challenged recently to think about what's realistic in the hours of the day that I have. And again, like David was saying, how many hours do I need to sleep, and therefore how many hours does that leave for work and for family and for me? And if I'm honest, I'm not sure I've got that balance quite right at the moment. So I think some of the things I'm doing for me are great, and I'm looking after myself. I'm not doing much exercise at the moment, and that's because I'm very good at putting swimming in my diary, which is my primary exercise. But I'm not very good at actually then getting to the swimming pool because things change. And I think this is an interesting one. I think in some ways I'm doing really well, and I'm saying no, I can't do that. I'm afraid I can't accept that invitation. That's too many things in the work diary. But I also think overall I'm trying to fit too much in, and I think I'm still reflecting a little bit on that as well. And I think as part of that, just knowing which bits you say yes to and which bits you say no to, and sometimes that's things you do, and sometimes that's things you hear or take on. I was thinking about that bit in the Bible where it talks about what we take into our bodies becomes who we are. And sometimes that can be how much emotional capacity we have for people, or how many people we can listen to who are in a challenging place, because actually that all comes into us and how we work out how much of that we hold. And I think that's been a bit of a challenge for me in my capacity reflecting recently.
Yeah. Well,
and I guess that's the other side of this commitment.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing, David. And I feel as if we're maybe, as you said at the very beginning, we are male, we're kind of with youngish families and otherwise. So I think already it strikes a kind of common note of struggling to get the right balance, and otherwise I'm just trying to reframe and rebalance. And for me, you've said, David, you said swimming. For me, it's running, and I do try and get running into that. And just trying to find space. And I think this comes into the next question of who are we caring for at the moment, is that I'm very easy and careful to look after others, and especially two young children in the household. Actually, it's come apparent recently that actually I'm very good at doing that, but not kind of for carving time for myself. And when work calls and otherwise, you just kind of get on an emergency footing, and you're kind of on automatic, and yet actually you need to kind of give yourself permission, or others need to give you permission to say, whoa, you need to kind of pause, and you need to actually carve out time. And I kind of heavily refer to that carving, because that's quite a hard process and an ongoing process that you can't just go, I've ticked that box now, I'm fine. Actually, it is about that rhythm and routine and having to change. So I've alluded to the next part of the question about who are we caring for at the moment. I'm going to jump in straight away and say children, just because I'm aware that might be a common point as well. Children, about looking after them and just making sure that they are clothed, fed, and not hurting one another unnecessarily. We've got into the very physical stage of parenting right now, very wrestling and rules and trying not to damage and destroy objects around the house. That seems to be the ongoing thing at the moment. So, caring for the children.
I think that's really interesting, Mark, because I think that isn't where my head had gone. And I think that's interesting, because I think I just do that. In the morning, they have to be, I only have one. He has to be up, he has to be out of the house, he has to go to school, and you breathe that sigh of relief as they go through the school day and know that someone else will care for them until 3:15. And I think that isn't where my mind had naturally gone in terms of who am I caring for. But you're saying that reminds me that that's a lot of my caring is as a dad in that. I think in my role, lots of Methodist districts have district mission enablers, and I would absolutely say they're all caring people. But I do find it, as I fulfil this bit of my vocation as an ordained person, I find that sense of being the pastor first, which is very much, I think, how you are when you're a presbyter. it comes into all the work that I do. So often, whenever I meet with colleagues, the first 10-15 minutes of conversation is a sense of how are you, how you doing, and I think I offer a sense of care in doing that, as I offer all the other ministry I offer. So I think that's the thing that had come to mind, and that isn't on the job description, that isn't on the things I have to do, but it is part of who I am as a minister.
Cool. And David?
This is great. I'm almost feeling inspired just to care more about more things. For me, the particular point of stretch for caring for others at the moment are 3 people of peace that I've been praying for a few years and have a good relationship with, kind of weekly connection points. I'm trying to, in some way, be to them what my 3 friends and mentors were to me, by remembering and noticing, and doing that thing that seems small but makes a difference to the person. A particular joke or comment that recalls previous fun and history from the friendship, and nudges them towards a better self, or a better decision. Those kind of friends, I think, to be that kind of friend requires caring for someone. And I say limited capacity for that because, as we've all echoed, work and family are our sort of first port of calls when we need to care for loved ones. And so people of peace at the moment are sort of third in line, but they are ones that I feel particularly encouraged to care for at the moment.
Thank you. Because I guess, as we've kind of demonstrated, that care comes in different forms, doesn't it? And to different depths. And some of them require much more close care and attention and washing. But then there's also times when, it's just much more of at arm's length or just the occasional thing. So everything, I guess it depends on that relationship that you're starting off with. I've got very good friends who we kind of just occasionally message one another, WhatsApp or otherwise. And then there are times when there is actually one friend, very good friend, who we basically tag one another in competitions on Instagram. Other platforms are available, but it's just a little kind of nudge. It's just those little nudges and otherwise, really. So, anything else left to say? Or shall we move on to our next?
I think just the last thing to say on this is we've all sort of noted that caring for others requires something of us. And I think, therefore, the caring for self is actually what was a really good first question. So, just remembering to care for ourselves. Otherwise, we're not able, really, to care for others.
There is that image. There's an image, isn't there, about kind of you can only pour out from the well that you already have, and therefore, if you are not looking after self, then you can't really do. I don't want to say a good job, but you'll struggle to. It wouldn't be a good kind of role or routine to kind of continue to do if you are already in your emergency kind of depths. Really not getting the full illustration there, but you know what I mean. You're nodding. Anything left to say, David G? No? Well, shall we move on?
Thanks, Mark. I think we'll move on to the next station. So we move from thinking about caring for ourselves and others to thinking about the tell station. This is one of the evangelism stations in A Methodist Way of Life. And the commitment is we tell of the love of God. And before we think about the reflection questions, I thought it'd just be good in a couple of sentences or a short paragraph to say, each of us to say, why do we think it's important that we tell of the love of God? Mark, why is it important for you that as Christians we tell of the love of God?
Well, I think it's like the best life review, isn't it? And I'm going to mention something really obscure now, but air fryers. Is that when air fryers became popular? Yeah, you didn't see that coming. When air fryers became popular, it kind of changed. I was really intrigued by them and interested in the technology, and I got chatting to an old deacon friend, and they were like, "Oh, we don't use ours," and I was like, "Oh, right, okay." And then in the end she went, "Oh, well, do you want to have ours?" I was like, "Yeah, but as long as you don't want it." "Oh, yeah, we're just going to get rid of it anyway." "Okay, fair enough." And I started using it. I was like, "This is amazing! I can do like this, I can do that, I can do gyozas in it, I can do chips." And in the end, my friend who had got rid of the air fryer was like, "What else are you doing? What else are you doing in it?" And in the end, I kind of won them around, and they got themselves another air fryer, because I was enjoying it so much. I did offer it back, by the way, but they were like, "No, we want a better one." But it was just like, because it affected my life so much, and I was just kind of, I found the benefit of it, then it just naturally spilt out before others, and I guess that's where I'm going to make that kind of cheesy link with God. Really, is that God does influence my life. God does bring greatness to it, and surely I would want to give a review of it, give it like a trust review or otherwise to those around us. So that's why I think it's important to tell, because actually if it is having an impact in our life, and the Spirit's kind of calling us and challenging us and bring us on, then surely it should overflow into those around me, even if I am talking about air fryers.
I love that.
David, how about you?
I love that analogy. Fantastic. I'll piggyback on that a little bit. I feel like I notice people being in an intentional way evangelists for certain things in life, whether it's a particular route to take to work on a drive, whether it's a new app. We brush up our lives against others, and we shape each other by the things that we review, the things that we recommend, the things that we feel have a good effect on life. And I've noticed friends of mine who don't have a faith, and I've tried to work out what it is that for them would having faith would be beneficial. How do I convince them? Or how do I portray, rather? It's not my job to convince them. That's God's. But how do I portray why this is important? And becoming a good person, or having particular comforts from a relationship with God, I feel like some of them might be able to find that somewhere else. Some of them are much better people by certain measures than I am. And so the love of God bit points to the purpose. Like it's more than just living well or living securely. There's a purpose behind it. So the love of God bit in evangelism for me makes it different to every other improve your life thing that we all kind of share about. There's something else, there's a bigger purpose. So for me, the love of God bit is important because it differentiates it from every other good thing we might be recommending.
I'm really glad, though, that you also make a differentiation between that tell and convince. And I know that you're like, oh, of course, it's not our job. But actually, I think that is, sometimes we do fall into that habit of kind of going, oh, gosh, and it's my responsibility to do all of this, rather than kind of going, actually, it's okay just to be a good witness and for God to fill in the rest. And sometimes we feel as if we have to kind of sow the seeds, water the seeds, kind of weed, and and then move them on to the next stage. Well, actually, sometimes it is just about, actually, if God's just calling us to just be, and just to be genuine, authentic, to be, kind of spirit filled, then actually, hopefully, those other things will kind of flow. And so, thank you for sharing that kind of difference between.
I stumbled into it, but thanks for clarifying.
Thank you both. Yeah, and I think for me, one of the things that I want to tell God's love is because actually is that story, the story of God and of God's people throughout eternity. For me, is the story that makes sense. And I think I only live my bit of it, and my life is a small bit in the story of God and of God's people. And I think I want other people to see their part in God's story and to know the love that I know because I'm part of God's story. And I think it's so easy. So often it's easy to think, oh, we have to write the whole book. We have to know the end of the story. And actually we have a part to play. And I think there's a fine balance, isn't there? Because you can easily then say, oh, I don't have to bother doing that because that's someone else's part of the story. And I think this commitment in A Methodist Way of Life reminds us that we all have a part to play in telling of God's love. But actually, all those bits get knitted together by God and not by us as part of that bigger story. And I think that's really important. I'm conscious of our time, so I'm just going to move us on. And the reflective questions at this station are, when was the last time you told a story about God? And who do you discuss faith with? And I want to challenge us a bit to think about who is that beyond the church as well as part of the church. I think it's very easy to answer these questions from who we do this within the church, but I wonder who is it we do this beyond the church. One of the places I do it beyond the church is that I'm part of the Scout community. My son is in Cubs and I do some volunteering, and I find that's a really great place to be able to talk about not just what I do, because people easily discover that I work for the church, but actually to discover what do my values mean, what does my faith mean as I live out my volunteering. And often that's the place where I get to meet people who are not part of the church. So often that's to be able to talk about God's love and to present a good picture of the church that maybe isn't the picture people have in their minds.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, I think there is something about. Oh, I think we're just playing catch up on the screen slightly. For me, I would say that there is something about online and chatting to people online about stuff and about God, and in some respects, in recent news about stuff going on over the pond and about what does it mean to be Christian, and where we kind of bring our politics and our values and things like that. And so I've been using not all Christians, like a hashtag not all Christians, but then kind of go into a little bit of discourse about saying, but this is what we're dealing with, and this is the kind of the place that we're talking into and trying to witness into. But I think there are also other times where it's just the incidental conversations, incidental meetings. Obviously talked about parenting, it's at the school gate and otherwise. If I'm honest as well, I hadn't realised that when our kids go to a faith school, I just assumed everyone had like a bit of a basic faith, and so that was quite a curveball that I kind of entered into a conversation. And it's a Catholic school, and so I was like, about the Catholic view on this, and the parent was like, oh, okay, and I was like, oh, okay. I've completely misread this. I've misread this, but that's not as recent. But yeah, I think kind of social media as well as there's incidental conversations, and usually I have a dog collar on as well. That kind of really helps people avoid the conversation too.
This is great. Again, just really encouraged by this.
I think, David, you're on a slight lag as David G. David C.
Carry on, David.
I was just saying it's really encouraging. Again, like the other station, just I'm feeling inspired from the places that you're speaking of God. For me, I am finding that I sometimes start a potential faith discussion with someone by saying, "Do you have a faith?" And the response is often, no, I don't do that church stuff. But that wasn't really my question. And so I'm trying to work on follow-up questions where the discussion can be about faith or purpose, something beyond the everyday, into which I can maybe inject my story of how God's affected my life. And that's where I get to tell a story about God. It's usually about how he's influenced my life. To make it relevant as far as possible to the person that I'm speaking with. So faith discussions often for me end up being a reframing of, it's not necessarily about church. It's about what are you seeing? What's the conversation around the bigger purpose for this person? And that's been how I've had those conversations and where they've been really beneficial for me.
Yes, we seem to have lost David, and I don't know where he's gone, or he'll hopefully appear in a moment. And I guess we'll kind of pause for a moment, but I guess maybe we should just ask the final question and see whether David will join us. And basically, this question of what are we likely to take away from today? Are there other elements of the conversation? What are we likely to take away with us?
For me, I think I've been inspired by particularly the first station about caring for self in order to care for others. I think for me, it's going to put me in a better position to respond to the needs of those around me, and to, I suppose, have greater awareness of what God might be saying in the moment when I'm speaking to people of peace, or there becomes an opportunity to have a faith discussion. If I've cared for myself and I'm well rested, I'm going to be more in tune to what God's saying. So that's something that I feel like I'm going to take away from today. Is caring for self actually enables more awareness of what God might be doing in faith discussions.
Welcome back, David. We've just been kind of starting to summarise and draw together things. What are you likely to take away from today?
I think some of that richness of that conversation about what it means to be parents who are caring, and maybe a little bit more kindness to myself, seeing that as my capacity rather than just that thing that has to happen every morning when the child has to be ready to go to school. So that would really help. And I think about that. I just hearing both of you in that rich variety of places that we can do the telling. And I hope that's inspired others as well. Others have been inspired by our conversation about where they can tell us as well.
Thank you. I think, just to echo both of what you've said, really, about just being good on self, and it's only from a point of strength can you help others, and it's not just restricted to one person or to one bit of family. It's our overall kind of way of which we look after and care. But I guess that also has an impact on how if we're in a good and healthy place in ourselves, then we can also that'll also impact the way that we can tell and be more aware of others around us. That being said, I'm fairly sure God will also use us in whatever state we're in, but actually if we're good to ourselves, then we're at a better point to be aware of and to tell others as well as care for others too.
Thanks, Mark. David, thank you so much for joining me today for this conversation, particularly David, for giving us some of your time. Your insights have been really, really helpful. To those of you who are watching, listening, just encourage you to think about where you might share this video or this podcast with friends so that they too can discover some of these joys of reflecting on a walk with God. A reminder that you can sign up for the Zoom conversations at 8 o'clock on the last Thursday of the evening. And when we gather next week, we're going to think about the worship station and the live station, and I look forward to that conversation. Thanks, everybody.